Rick, it's really great to have you here today. You and I have known each other back since I was an entrepreneur, pitching you for an investing round. And 4 years ago, GV led your Series C financing. So one of the things that really caught my eye when we first started chatting about Desktop Metal was the team you assembled. You have world-class metallurgists from MIT. Tell us a bit about how that team came together.
Yeah, it was a really interesting time when we were getting going. We had the fortune of having worked with a lot of our co-founders before. All of us had some capacity, either I'd been an investor in somebody's company or had worked together. So we have 4 MIT professors in our founding team. All of us knew each other from the time that we started, and everybody brought a particular skill set. And then John Meyerberg, our CTO, is also a co-founder, had a long career collaborating with me. So I think we had a group of folks that had worked together pretty closely before, and it became it's almost like when you're starting a company, you're trying to solve problems, and you got to call somebody that knows how to solve that problem, and then convince them to join you on an exciting ride. So that's how we ended up essentially working together. But it's a great group of people.
Cool. And so when you first shipped the Studio system back in 2017, there weren't really that many metal 3D printers out in the wild yet. So tell me, how did you convince those early customers that this was the future? Because today, obviously, Desktop has customers all over the world and tons of printers out there.
Yeah, we're in 60 countries and it's global today. But at the time, when we started, the only way to get a metal 3D printer was either you order a part from a service bureau, and it was very expensive, or you got $1 million machine that needed a special facility and 480-volt 3-phase and special, all sorts of special considerations to be able to use it. You had to send somebody to Germany to train how to use the equipment. It was somewhat of a backwards process. And once you were done with a part, you had to wire EDM it and machine all the supports out. It's quite a complicated process. So we, when we introduced the Studio system for the first time, we made it accessible to print metal parts anywhere, and it was at a fraction of the hardware cost that you would have spent otherwise. And we made it really, really easy to succeed with metal printing, where the computer and the system essentially takes care of all the things that you need to know to be successful.
Mm-hmm. So Desktop Metal just celebrated 5 years in business. Tell us maybe some of the biggest lessons for you entrepreneurially in the last half decade.
Well, I think in the last half decade, I've been starting companies since I was 20, and when I raised first round of venture. So I've been at it now for 25 years, and you get better at doing things with time. It's basically experience-based judgment. At DMs in particular, I think that some of the biggest lessons have had to do with the fact that everything takes longer and costs more money, which is something that most people are used to. We were probably overly ambitious when we initially got going, and but the other side of that coin is that usually we think that things are linear. The reality is that there's an exponential element. Even though things may take a little bit longer, they then accelerate at probably a faster rate, and that's what we're experiencing now. That we're going into 4 product platforms that have a broad availability and very large market access, like our shop system, for example, is a really mass market product that produces parts at a fraction of the cost of previous generation technologies and has incredibly broad applicability. So almost 1 million sites globally have CNC equipment, and that type of machine is very much a mass market product that can go in the majority of those sites.
Cool. So you often discuss additive manufacturing 2.0. What does that mean in layman's terms, and how has this evolved from additive manufacturing 1.0?
Yeah, I mean, this industry has been around for a long time, but I think that this is really going to be the decade for additive. When we started the company, it was a $5 billion industry. Last year was a $12 billion industry. So roughly in those first 4 years, it grew from 5 to 12. It's projected that by the end of this decade, it'll be 146 billion. in size. So it's really undergoing an expansion that has to do with compounding. The industry compounded at 20% for the last decade and accelerated the last 3 years, and is projected to continue to compound at a similar rate this decade. So when you think about it, you say, wow, 146 billion, that's a very large market. Still a fraction of the $12 trillion worth of goods that are made globally every year. Very few things are additively manufactured, despite all the benefits that additive can bring in terms of reducing inventory, having freedom of design, improving the performance of products, not having all the CO2 footprint of shipping goods all over the place, and not having to make spare parts upfront when you make a product. So to answer your question on additive 2.0, 2.0 we consider manufacturing of parts at a lower cost structure than the conventional approach, but through additive. Whereas the additive 1.0, which was the first 20 years of this industry, was primarily tooling, jigs and fixtures, and sort of niche applications like prototyping. This 2.0 segment is where the majority of the capital spend in a program happens. You usually would spend maybe 1% of the cost of the part in tooling, maybe 4% or 5% in engineering upfront, like prototyping and other DFM work. And then in the mass production and the spare parts, you spend 95%. And that's the era that we're entering now, because you can now mass produce at a cost that's a fraction of the original additive technology and less expensive than conventional manufacturing. You can now go to market with this type of process. And that's a massive change from what we were doing a decade ago when the industry was much smaller.